Today we will talk about supply chain management, and the lecture will specifically focus on what supply chains are, the definitions of supply chains, the relevance of supply chains, why supply chains are needed, and as practitioners tomorrow in the market, what do you need to know about supply chains? So the learning objectives of this lecture is to introduce you to the concept of supply chain, and then try to make you understand what supply chains are and what is the difference between supply chain and supply chain management, and also let you know the importance and relevance of supply chains and the supply chain management. And at the end we'll have open discussion and comment session, so that we make sure that it's not just me who is standing here and presenting, so that we have also a very fair share of exchange of ideas. To start with, what is a supply chain? Or what is supply chain management? While supply chain management actually finds overlaps with different concepts, and you see there are at least 5 different terms, but supply chain management is the most often used term. And if you take, for example, the value stream management or the value network management, or the demand chain management, it all in the end caters for the end customer demands, which is again also the ultimate aim of supply chain management. So increasingly, practitioners and researchers are now using supply chains rather than these terms that are presented here on the board. In the first place, why do we even need supply chains? Businesses can exist as individual entities in the markets. What is the need for supply chains? Just to give you an example, that the firms have to deal with their suppliers quite often, and if I take a typical example of original equipment manufacturers or automotive industries, or even for that matter food industries, you see that almost 60 to 80% of the spend is on the procurement of the raw materials, where you'll have to directly deal with your suppliers. Yeah. Secondly, globalization and sourcing strategies, in the sense that the businesses has crossed the boundaries and it has reached offshore, in the sense it has gone very international and has included suppliers into its business operations from different countries, for example from emerging countries, emerging and developing countries, or countries like India, China, Brazil, etc. And then thirdly, it's not anymore a competition between a firm and a firm, but it is the competition between supply chain and a supply chain, in the sense that a firm which manages its supply chain properly will in the end have competitive advantage. And with regards to the management of the suppliers, it's not that easy either, or even the management of the entities, business entities in a supply chain is not easy either, because you have multiple suppliers and multiple firms involved in it. And then you have increasing demands for best customer service, in the sense that mass customization of the products has actually made the business think as to how they can effectively manage their supply chains to meet the customer services. And let me tell you that supply chains can exist even if there is no supply chain management, but it can only exist, for example, for commoditized products or commodity products, and not for customized products, because customized products require intense amount of information exchange between buyers and suppliers. If I take a very simple example of pizza, because you all love pizza, you might be finding this example very interesting. And when I take a very simple example of supply chain of pizza, you can see that you have raw material producers, retailers, processors and manufacturers, a whole unit of business entities actually coordinating with each other in order to meet the demand of the end customer. To tell you a very simple example, that mushrooms might come from Turkey and tomatoes might come from Spain and the cheese might come from Italy. Yeah? And it is not possible for the processor or the manufacturer to keep a track of all the seasonal and unseasonal products and get in touch with the raw material producer all the time. So what a retailer does is it directly contacts with the raw materials or stays in touch with the raw material suppliers and stocks it so that the product is available even when there is a demand in products which are unseasonal. Okay? So in the end you see that if you are customizing a pizza, there's so much of coordination that goes behind in between different business entities. I wanted to give you an example of this because for a simple supply chain like pizza, you need cooperative relationships, you need coordination among the supply chain members. So what is a supply chain? As mentioned, supply chains is a set of 3 or more entities, and when I say entities, it is not just organizations, but it could also be individuals. Several independent firms which are involved in manufacturing a product and placing finally it into the hands of the customer. So while doing so, a supply chain actually encompasses all activities in the sense that by the time a product reaches the final customer, it goes through a number of business entities right from the stage of raw material extraction to the end customer, and during this process there is intense amount of information flow among different business units, and also accordingly you also see there's a lot of flow of material. So it's a material and information flow that takes place between different business units. So supply chain management is rather an integration of these activities through improved supply chain relationships, in the sense that you need to have a high level of coordination and cooperation in order to make sure that your supply chain is competitive enough to reach the customer demands. Yeah? And you also have, as I have already mentioned in the beginning of my lecture, that customers are increasingly asking for customized products. And if you need to be competitive in providing customized products, you need a high amount of coordination with the supply chain members. So what are the characteristics of supply chain management? The characteristic feature is, like, first of all, the organization needs to have an orientation towards managing the supply chains, and this orientation actually comes from the involvement of the top management, and both the functional and the organizational capabilities should be strengthened and synchronized to make sure that the end customer expectations are fulfilled. Yeah? So a strategic orientation towards cooperative effort to synchronize and converge both intra-firm and inter-firm operational and strategic capabilities, in the sense that you can actually plan your capacities, you can actually plan your inventories, you can actually plan your production planning also, thereby reducing the inventories, reducing the costs, reducing and being more competitive in the markets. So just to give you an example how a supply chain management is done and how a supply chain looks like, here are the business units, the final customer, and in between you have different business units which in the end cater to the demand of the final customer. And as I told you, there's intense amount of information flow and material flow, and a supply chain is just not linear, but it's a complex network, a web of the different entities coming together and in the end satisfying the customer needs. So what is the output? The output is meeting the customer demands through quality, speed, dependability, flexibility, cost, the typical key performance indicators, and can reduce the short lead times, for example, through intense information sharing. And then what are the inputs? The inputs are that you maintain your inventories to the lowest possible, you use the materials as less as you can, and also deliver the product to the customer on the right time at the right place. And in the end, it is all about cutting the costs in your businesses. So you can do it actually by adjusting your production capabilities, your capacity planning, etc., as I've already mentioned to you. So in the end, it's all about cost cuttings. Supply chain makes you more competitive by the way of introducing the concept of coordinating with business entities across the supply chains. Thank you very much, and let us have a discussion about what do you feel about supply chains, and if you have got any inputs or new ideas on how you would assume supply chain to be, and let me know if you have understood what supply chains are. Thank you very much.